Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you are doing well. Continuing our coverage today in the Delphi Murders case, and it's been getting interesting. One thing that happened, which I haven't watched this full court TV segment. I doubt they put this on. There actually has been some leaked photos from the crime scene. I find that to be atrocious. And honestly, the last thing that needs to be done is people posting leaked crime scene photos on the internet. And I know they're trying to track down who did that. If the defense is leaking information, leaking photos, that's problematic. But we're going to dive into that. Headline from Court TV saying that Odinism is confirmed in the Richard Allen's prison case, which some of the accusation there was that Richard Allen, according to the defense, has been set up by a cult called Odinism cult. The officers, the corrections officers working apparently have, instead of "In God We Trust" on their badges, they have "In Odin We Trust." And the way that the bodies of Abby and Libby were apparently found, based on, according to the defense's interpretation, is that this was a human sacrifice, obviously demonic, to Odin. And so we're going to try to dive into some of this today. We've been talking in theoretical terms about what's happening and if it's legitimate or not. Now that some of the information is actually confirmed, I I'm I am myself concerned about what's going on. And so we're going to dive into it, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. As we're getting started too, I just want you to know we're totally crowdfunded. We depend on you for help to keep us going. If you're able to support us today, you can support. Information's down at the bottom of the screen. Cash App is maybe the best way. $ Tyler Feller 22. There's no fees attached. You can also support through Super Sticker or Super Chat. We have a double whammy from Cat Joy. Thank you, Cat Joy in Amy Heights. You guys are amazing. I do have a ministry event tonight and tomorrow night and the next night and pretty much every night. So that's why we are streaming early right now. I'm in the middle of seeing this amazing revival take place. And so I'm kind of having to divert some of my evening attention and my time to that. As many of you well know, it's a good thing to do. That's why we're streaming a little bit earlier and we're having to stream shorter. But I'm so grateful for those of you that continue to support us, knowing that we can't do what we do without you. So thank you. And I'm trying my best to squeeze it all in. And Amy Heights says, earlier is better than never. Hey, that's the way I feel. So here we are on Monday, streaming a little bit earlier. So we're going to dive into this from Court TV.
For more than 5 years, it was a mystery, an unsolved case with many leads, suspicious characters, and so many rumors. Investigators released very little information, but journalists, podcasters, and true crime followers all speculated on what happened to best friends Abby Williams and Libby German, two teenage girls living in the small rural community of Delphi, Indiana, a town with just 3,000 residents. On February 13, 2017, the girls had a day off from school and they decided to go on an outdoor adventure. They were dropped off near the Monon High Bridge, and that's where their bodies were found the next day. More than 5 years later, Richard Allen was arrested for the murders, but he is claiming his innocence, and the defense has their own theory of the case. A group of white nationalists who practice the ancient Nordic religion of Odinism murdered the girls in a ritualistic killing. They also claim the reach of these local Odinists goes all the way to the prison where he is being held. Tonight, we take a look at this alleged Odinistic conspiracy, from the scene of the murders to the suspected killers to the prison and the guards watching Richard Allen, as we continue our investigation of the Delphi murders. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for...
Again, guys, some of our objective and aim in continuing to cover this case is twofold. One, justice for the victims, and praise God that they were able to get some cell phone coverage and footage of what took place. I think it's likely there's a lot more cell phone coverage than they have than we know about. They've released just a very little bit of it to the public to help preserve their case, but also I think is a message to the person that committed this evil atrocity, that they have them in their eyes. And I think it was probably strategic from a law enforcement standpoint of why and how they chose to do that. And then, so I think there is some, but the reason why we do this is because we want justice for the victims and peace for the families. And they've worked hard filming and trying to get this for their own sake, to get justice even after they're no longer living. And now we are lending our voice in this platform, although it's small in the grand scheme of things. We are lending this platform, and hopefully it's effective, at least in some measure, to make sure there's peace for the families. And if Richard Allen didn't do this, then 100% absolutely that needs to be known so the family can get down to the bottom of this. If Richard Allen did commit this evil atrocity, then he needs to deal with the natural consequences of his very disgusting, nasty sin. And I'm kind of the mindset, and you guys are totally entitled to your own opinion. I'm not set in stone on this. My idea of what's happening continues to evolve as we learn more about the case. But I lean more towards, personally, if I had to pick today, that Richard Allen didn't commit this crime. That's my thought, guys, and I'll tell you why. The more that this Odinism stuff is connected, if Richard Allen is not an Odin, then it makes sense. If the Odinism stuff is true, then it makes sense that he wouldn't have committed the crime and they would have found somebody to do it for. If the Odin stuff is not true and it's totally fabricated by the defense, then you're in a position where you're like, okay, he likely committed this crime based off of the one single piece of evidence that they had, which they lost, which was the bullet. But the fact that they lost that piece of evidence, I don't know. And they're trying to make the case that law enforcement are Odins and are in on trying to frame him, then that takes it up a notch, and it lends more credibility towards what the defense is saying. So there's a lot to unpack, but if I had to pick today, I would say he's likely not guilty. What do you guys think? And again, this is one of those ones I'm on the fence about. Don't feel bad if you have a totally opposite opinion of me, but put a 1 in the chat if you think he's guilty. Put a 2 in the chat if you think he might be innocent. Again, I'm kind of 50-50 on this, but if I had to pick today, I would lean towards he's innocent. Hey, Jennifer Swain on that train. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Cat Joy, thank you for hopping aboard that train and gifting those memberships. You are amazing. And you're saying, how many super stickers do you have? Do you guys think we can do 25 super chats or super stickers this hour? We're just doing 1 hour on the super sticker train. I'm wondering if in this 1 hour we can get up to 25. So let me know what you guys think. Let's try to get 25 super stickers starting now.
For joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments, as we take a lot of time to take a look at the Delphi murders. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at what we're going to do this hour. 2 ways to look at it. Number 1, the defense is alleging all of this, okay? So it's the defense who is making allegations relative to this Odinism. 2 ways to look at that. 1, does it just kind of raise a doubt as to what's really going on here, right? And that's a tactic that is used by criminal defense attorneys in every criminal case that we cover, right? There's some way that they're trying to, they always say, muddy the waters, right? That's one way to look at what we're going to go through tonight. The other way to look at it is this the truth? Is this what really happened? Is an innocent man being charged with murder? Now, from my perspective, especially at this point of everything, actually all the time, I'm concerned with what the truth is. What is the truth? So we're going to go through this Odinism to figure out what exactly.
That's 100% the same boat I'm in. Like, what is the truth in this, and how can we get down to the bottom of it? I mean, is the defense leaking information that's not true? Are they leaking crime scene photos? Or what's actually going on here? It's just become so complex of a situation. It's pretty much impossible to know the truth of what's going on unless we know the full picture. And there's so many things that I think are working against, and I think you guys would agree, but there's so many things that are working against uh, the prosecution trying to pinpoint Richard Allen at this point, and I could be wrong. Amy Heights, thank you for being the first on that train. Dixie, thank you. And Kat Joy with the double whammy. That's 4 on our super sticker train right off the get-go, and I want to celebrate D. Ashley for becoming a member of the Feller fam. D. Ashley, we're so glad to have you. Thank you for joining the Feller fam.
It means relative to the truth, not like, oh, yeah, it could really, mess up the prosecution. No. Tonight, we're going to try to figure out the relationship of what they are alleging to the truth of what happened to these 2 girls. And this is it's a horrific case. We know that. This is terrible, terrible what happened to Libby and Abby. The murder scene was strange. There were things at this murder scene that were a little bizarre, perhaps staged, perhaps a ritual. Whatever it was, this was not a normal, and I don't want to say, there's never like anything that's normal when you talk about murder, but it's not someone is killed and then the killer just gets out of there and the body is just left wherever it was. There was something that was done at that scene afterwards, and then the clothing, all of it. It was strange. And the question is, what's the significance of all that? We're going to dive into that tonight. Richard Allen is saying, I didn't do it. He's saying the Odinists did it. I mean, it's a clear finger they are pointing in this case. And we're going to take a look. We'll take a look at the scene. We'll also take a look. We won't name anyone, but we'll take a look at the people that he's pointing the finger at and what circumstances surrounding those people that have the defense alleging that Richard Allen is innocent and these other people are guilty of this horrific murder. And then we've got to take a look at what's happening in that prison where he's being held. He's alleging that you've got some prison guard pagans who are practicing Odinism. That it's not just the murder scene, it's the murder scene, it's the killers, and it's the people who are guarding him inside the prison. So we're learning more this week. We've got to take some of these pieces and figure out, is it a case where there's just a little trace of truth to it and then it's kind of being expanded out? Or is there something to this? Because again, this is a case, took 5 years to get to this point for an arrest. But now the defense has turned it around and said, well, wait a minute, this is something completely different. So let's begin at the prison, because this is the latest stuff and information that we've gotten, because we've got a response from the prosecution and the prison guards themselves. So the defense in their memorandum is alleging that members of a pagan Norse religion, Odinism, predates Christianity, hijacked by white nationalists. So it's an actual religion, but it's been hijacked by white nationalists who ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. That is clear. That's what their allegation is. That's who did it. The evidence shows that during his pretrial incarceration at the Westville Correctional Facility, Richard Allen has been monitored, intimidated, and mentally abused by correctional officers.
I agree. I mean, look at the picture straight to the left of that document that you see on the screen. Compared to what he looked like when he went in, he looks exactly like somebody who's been tortured. He looks like somebody who's been abused. He looks like somebody who's been taken advantage of. He looks like somebody that they're not feeding well. I mean, just from my perspective, when he went in, he looked kind of healthy. He looks terrible now. Let me know what you guys think, because I'm kind of of the mindset that he needs some prayer for sure, but also have been sort of the inline of some torture. So that's one of the things that I've thought about. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you so much for that amazing super sticker and gifting those memberships. And then look at this one. Woo-wee. Cat Joy, thank you. And you know what, Amy Heights, that's exactly it. That is the only other thing. It's like he's trying to build this defense up. And so he's egging it on, and he's some kind of like twisted, mastermind of sorts. It could be the case. I mean, it could be the case that he is starving himself intentionally. He is doing this or doing that or doing this or doing that. But I would say one thing that lends some credibility to what he's saying is that Odinism is confirmed in his prison. And if Odinism's confirmed in his prison, it makes the claims that he's saying that much more accurate or reliable. So it could be self-inflicted, but it might also not be. We don't know. We'll find out the more information comes out. Hey, Me Too Mind Me. Look at you with a double whammy. Me Too Mind Me. Woo-wee. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate your support today.
Officers who are also members of the Odinite cult. Well, how would he know that? Here's the allegation. These Westville corrections officers boldly wore patches on their Department of Corrections uniforms that proclaimed, "In Odin we trust," along with another patch displaying symbols of Odinism, the interlocking triangles. Big allegation, right? On their uniforms, they are wearing these Odinist symbols and being very bold about it. So what was the response from the prosecution and from those prison guards? We've got that for you tonight. The state's response was, and again, we're not naming any of the corrections officers here, that both Sergeant X and Sergeant X have worn patches that refer to Odinism, that those patches reflect that Sergeant Unnamed and Sergeant Unnamed's religious beliefs are not associated with any kind of cult. So they are Odinists? That's what I'm hearing.
They confirmed that they're Odinists. Think about it like that. They have now confirmed that they're Odinists. And not only that, but one of the things that the defense have said is that they think they know who did this, was responsible for the crime scene, and that person is an Odinite, and they actually have caught him with the exact crime scene in a scale model in his house detailed. Why are they not trying to go after that guy? Why are they not at least looking into that guy? He had information about how the crime scene was committed that was not public. So it's not like he's just watching the news and recreating it. There's some things that he actually found out. So the way I'm thinking about it, guys, and I could be right, I could be wrong, is it doesn't bode well for the Odinites. It doesn't bode well for the prosecution, and it seems to be working more in favor of the defense, at least from my perspective, my limited vantage point of what I'm seeing. Claire says this: if I remember correctly, he was confused to prison rather than parish jail for his protection. Not hard to believe in a prison that he'd be treated harshly for the crime he's accused. That's a great point too. I thought about that. It's like, well, no duh, they're going to treat him bad. That's going to be a given based on the crime that he's accused of, which would involve, the likely sexual harassment of these two victims, and obviously the brutal murder of these two victims. So it's almost like, well, no duh, that he was treated badly. Everybody who is kind of accused of what he's done and is arrested over it, and especially having spent 5 years amongst the general population, pretending like you had nothing to do with it, and they finally catch you after 5 years, you're going to get 5 years of restitution paid back to you for the evil atrocity that, he was accused of committing. So I understand that too. It's kind of a great perspective. Hey, Jennifer Swain on the train. Just had to say it once. I like it. I like Jennifer Swain on the train. Cat Joy, you are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They may remove the defense. Yeah, I heard that they're talking about removing the defense because this is supposed to go to trial on January 2024. So just a couple of months from now, really. And one of the things that they're doing is they're trying to say, listen, we don't want this thing to actually go to trial with the defense that could be leaking information or could be bad actors. And so from my perspective, they don't really know who's leaking this information or where it's coming from. If the defense is leaking this information, then uh, obviously they have some issues, and that's a problem. And they don't want them involved in it. But they might not be leaking the information, and they could be there could be this really demonic cult thing going on. So I don't know. I really don't know in this case. But yeah, you're exactly right. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you so much for that amazing super sticker. That's number 11 on our super sticker. We're going over 25, so 14 left. Hey, Becky 11, hope you were doing well. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Trucy. Any person is going to be treated like this. So
Now, affidavit from each of these correctional officers. We begin with number one. I have been an acting supervisor in APOD, where the defendant is housed since late February, early March 2023, that I do not practice Odinism and that Norse paganism heathenry is my practicing religion. So it's a different form of paganism, I guess Nordic, because it's Norse, right? Heathenry, not Odinism. I don't know the difference. I'm sure there probably is a difference. You know, there's a difference between Roman Catholics and Greek Orthodox and other types of Christians. I get it. But it's still interesting. Now, here's the big one. I do wear patches on my uniform that identify me as someone who practices Norse paganism heathenry.
I'm telling you right now, any person that says they practice heathenry, tell me what you guys think. Heathen? If you're a heathen, it means you're a terrible person. He's admitting to being a heathen. He literally says his religion is to be a heathen. That's problematic to me. I'm telling you that much right now. That's problematic when the police officer is right there saying, I'm the supervisor. He has a paganism, heathenry as his religion. It's a subsect of Odinism in some people's view. So it is what it is. Hey, Cat in the Hat. You said Cat in the Hat because it's so cold outside. It is getting chilly. Outside, it's 57 right now, and I could feel it in my house. I'm like, ooh, it's a little cold in my house today. So yeah, Cat in a Hat, thank you so much for that. And thank you for gifting those amazing memberships. Hey, Me Too Mind Me, you said praying, winky face, have a good day. You're amazing. Thank you so much for your tremendous encouragement and generosity today.
Patches are real. The patches are real. But says, I am not part of a cult. I am not part of a radical hate group. I have never had a one-on-one conversation with the defendant where I tried to influence him in any way. Correctional officer number 2, I do not practice Odinism. I do wear patches on my uniform that can be, but are not associated with Odinism. Can be? So it's an Odinistic patch that, yeah, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it, I guess a different way, right? I guess if someone was wearing a cross, you could say, well, it's a T. It wasn't a cross. I don't know. That the patches pay the utmost respect to my religious higher power, the same way a Christian person would wear a cross. There you go. Okay. How about that, folks? How about that? Let's bring in my guests. Joining me tonight in Indianapolis, Indiana, hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast. Make sure you download tonight, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, I saw him shaking his head, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, also an expert on religious cults. Mike King is with us. All right. I'll get to you in a second, Mike, because I know you got a lot to say about this. All right, Anya and Kevin, so this was the week where we had the response. And am I reading anything wrong? And do you have more information that it seems these guards, 2 of these guards, were wearing patches associated, whether directly or loosely, or could be interpreted as Odinism?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and we've learned a lot about heathenry and paganism since all this came out. But heathenry is a blanket term that refers to people who believe in the Germanic gods of old, the Norse gods of old. And that includes people who are not racist, they're not in cults, they're just normal people like you and I, like just like how I'm a Roman Catholic, right? And that's their religion, nothing wrong with that. Odinism refers to a slice of that community that takes that and is white supremacist. They're linked to prison gangs. So basically calling all people who are heathens Odinists is a bit like calling all Mormons or people of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, affiliating them with followers of Warren Jeffs, who runs a polygamous cult that targeted young children. So it's kind of like the defense is painting with a very, very broad brush when they refer to basically all symbols associated with heathenry as being directly linked to Odinism, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does. And we've been saying from the beginning, freedom of religion in this country. You can practice whatever you want. I mean, this religion predates Christianity. It's been around a long, long time. But how common is it? Because before this, I'll be honest, never heard of it. Don't have any friends who have ever discussed it with me if they practice it or if they know people that practice it. In all your research, you're finding that it's more common than we might think?
I think it's interesting because we've definitely found and heard from a lot of pagans and heathens who've reached out to us saying, I in no way am involved with child murder or child sacrifice. That's not what me and my fellow members of the faith are about. So we've definitely heard more about it now just because it's being sort of targeted by the defense in their scheme of a grand conspiracy involving Odinists across the state. And so I think it's probably a little more common than we might think. And again, most heathens are very normal, just nice people. Odinism, the sect, the kind of side of things that aren't so nice, that is linked to white supremacy, criminal gangs, prison gangs. So that is where you actually do get people who are, maybe more, concerning, I suppose.
Right, and that's where the defense says that it's been hijacked by white nationalists, which would be folks in prison. And the question is that where these prison guards are? Or are they on the other side of this? All right, Mike King, when this all came down, we were like, there's no way that you're allowed to wear these patches if you're a prison guard. Like you wouldn't be able to wear, whether it's the Star of David or something that would show that you're a Christian, a cross, Jesus. I don't think you would do that on your actual, but apparently it was permitted. So what are you taking away from this tonight, Mike?
That once again, expect the unexpected in these kinds of cases that we look at on court TV, Vinny. I mean, I was one who stood up on your show and said, I don't believe it. And I'm still scratching my head thinking, who made the rule that allowed that kind of wackery to happen? There's a thing called separation of church and state. And the inmate deserves to know that this is a fair and impartial system. The people working in that system need to know that I don't have to share what my favorite kind of brownie is or anything else. I need to go and do a job of ensuring that inmates remain in a facility, that they're given opportunity to grow and develop and hopefully get better, but that we protect the community from them when they're in there. And I'm just so disappointed in the fact that they were allowed to do that. And hopefully when that rule came down and they pulled those off of their uniforms, somebody did a serious relook at what a uniform should look like.
And Anya and Kevin, the warden permitted it, right? It wasn't like these were rogue officers who were breaking rules there. This was actually permitted.
Yes, it was permitted. And in fact, one thing that was interesting in these new materials that came out is that it was also emphasized that these two guards happen to have very good records. They don't have records of abusing prisoners. They certainly don't have any records of threatening prisoners or trying to coerce them into making certain statements. So I think it's pretty clear that if it was against the rules, the guards would not have been wearing the patches.
All right. got some more to share with everyone tonight. And the reason why this is extremely significant is part of the evidence against this defendant is a confession. Take a look. On April 3rd, 2023, Richard Allen, and he's in prison at this point, made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. So then the defense said, corrections officers were within earshot of every conversation between Richard and his attorneys, and even between Richard and his wife, close enough that Richard would have to be worried about any conversation with his attorneys and with his wife being overheard by Sergeant Blank and Sergeant Blank or other corrections officers. Corrections officers even required that Richard Allen be positioned facing the window where the corrections officer was videotaping the attorney visits with the handheld camcorder. Richard would therefore not be able to privately discuss anything with his attorneys, such as, quote, the guards are telling me that my wife and family will be killed unless I call my wife and tell her that I killed those girls. So, Anya and Kevin, this is the significance of all this, because he's saying, or the defense is saying, this confession to my wife was made under duress and direct threat by these officers who had been wearing those patches.
Yeah, I think the most telling thing about that page is the associated footnote, number 15, in which the defense attorneys make it clear that he never said anything to that effect, that the guards never threatened to kill his wife in exchange for a confession, but you know, it could have happened.
It was basically speculation on the part of attorneys. It was basically speculation on the part of Allen's attorneys, and it is important to note that this is something that is strongly denied by the prosecution in these filings. They have these guards giving sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury, strongly asserting that they never made any threats to Richard Allen, never tried to coerce Richard Allen into making any statements.
Yeah, that's where the memo gets a little conspiratorial, in my opinion.
The time, I think it's clear whether it was intentional torture because if they're trying to frame him as an Odinite, or if it just happened by just mistreatment due to the crime that he committed, and it's just bound to happen to somebody that's been arrested for the evil atrocity like he did. When he made that somewhat tiny bit of a confession is the way that I process it is, and you guys tell me what you think, but the way that I process it is pretty clearly he was not in the right state of mind to be making a confession, and it's not going to hold up. And I know that's one of the other things that people keep saying, well, he made a confession. After he'd been malnourished for 2 weeks and wasn't in the right state of his mind and couldn't make a one coherent sentence otherwise, that barely counts as a statement in my mind. I mean, it doesn't feel right to try to use that against him, considering the conditions that he was in. At least that's my perspective. Let me know what you guys think. He did admit this to his wife on the phone, but he wasn't in the right state of mind. Is that fair to say that it doesn't count? Put a 1 in the chat if you say yes. Put a 2 in the chat if you say no. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you for that triple whammy there. And Julie Cannon right there supporting us as well. Thank you so much, Julie Cannon, Cat Joy, for those gifted memberships. I say thank you. And then another double whammy followed by Amy Heights. You guys are absolutely amazing. We're going after 25 super stickers. That takes us to 22. We're 3 away from reaching our goal. I wonder who's going to help get us there. Tiny confession. He made several confessions and will hold up. He was not in the right state of mind, Alan. So I disagree. And I've spoke with somebody who's working on the case. They're not allowed to make public statements about it because there's a non-dissemination order. But it felt like to me, and they weren't really able to share hardly any information of value, but it felt like to me they're pretty convinced that he's innocent. And for me, that's an important source of information to consider. So I'm right there with you guys on all of this by saying, you know, it could go either way, but we need to be keeping our eyes and ears open for curveballs. And the fact that these people are confirmed being a part of a cult, religious stuff, even though he says he's not a part of a cult, he's a heathenry, whatever the heck that is. Some people call it a subsect of Odinism. So I'm just call it for what it is. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you so much for that amazing super sticker. Really appreciate it.
But it's definitely an interesting strategy.
Oh, it's a strategy, but you have to have a good faith belief if you're going to allege that in court. You can't drop footnotes in the courtroom. I don't think. So, Mike. So we this is an important piece of evidence for the prosecution because this is a case that, you know, directly linking this defendant. The obvious way you link a defendant to a crime is through a confession, and the jury has to believe that this confession is not coerced, that it was voluntary. What are your thoughts about everything that's going on allegedly in this prison and him making this call? Does it have the ring of truth to you that he would confess to his wife?
Yeah, it does have a ring of truth to me that he would confess, Vinny. And I think back to one of your guests who talked about the stressors that are on inmates and the need to kind of cleanse at certain points throughout the incarceration period. I think this thing's going to really boil down to transparency and what protocol is in that facility. Is he being treated differently, and do they have a reason to justify him being treated differently, or is this the way that every inmate is being treated in there? And boy, I agree with Anya and Kevin on this concept of the defense merely bringing up, hey, by the way, this could have happened. Well, aliens could have beamed into his room and said something too. And I just think it was really inappropriate. Again, I have to keep pinching myself and saying, wait and see as more evidence comes out, because this case keeps just surprising me day after day.
Yeah, the only way that gets in front of the jury is if Richard Allen gets on the witness stand. To me, that's the only way, right? It's the defense could potentially put it in their opening statement and then hide behind attorney-client privilege, you know, as the good faith basis. I've seen that done successfully in trials, but to get it in front of the jury, it has to come from Richard Allen because he would be the one that received the threat. And maybe, I don't know why the defense would put it out that way, but it could have something to do with attorney-client privilege and not wanting to reveal or get locked into anything that he may or may not say if and when he chooses to testify, but we shall see. All right, here's the good news. Mike King is staying with us, but
tell me what you guys are thinking in all of this, because there's certainly a lot. Alan, I just don't think so. There's been several experts that have been on the panels that say there's no way that confession is going to hold up. People who think he's likely guilty based on the bullet. So I just don't know why you think that confession will hold up. Tell me why. Give me a source. But I'm leaning towards no on that. I just don't think so. I mean, I'm willing to hear an argument from your perspective, but from many experts, there's no way that confession will hold up. So let me know why you think that, and give me a source if you have one. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you. Me too, mind me. Woo, me too, mind me. Naomi, thank you. And Cat Joy, you are awesome. Thank you for your tremendous support. Thank you. You said world peace and criminals need to stop. 100%. Criminals need to stop, and I'm right there with you on the world peace part of it. Absolutely.
Anya and Kevin are taking off. It's the Murder Sheet podcast. Download it. Everything we do here in even greater detail all the time. Great to see you, Anya and Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Mike, you don't go anywhere. All right, folks, we're going to
County, Florida, from
This
son told the light with D.
downhill. Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
That's the killer. That's the killer. Now, did he act alone? Did he act with others? Or is it not the killer? Is it Richard Allen? This case has really taken on a life of its own at this point. You know, it took 5 years. 5 years, nothing, nothing, nothing. Now we've got all these different things happening at once. So let's get to the scene of the crime. And we have put together this graphic that is based upon the description from this defense filing, this defense memo. So you have Libby laying flat on her back, her left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of the large tree. Her right arm was placed along the side of her body. A large branch was placed on her left shoulder. The branch extended above Libby's head and below her legs. Two smaller branches formed a V where her legs joined. Both sides of the V extended upwards towards Libby's head. The branch extended across Libby's body on a line from the right shoulder to the left shoulder. Then we go to Abby, just feet away from Libby at an angle. Abby's legs are feet away from Libby's legs. Their heads just a few feet apart. Abby was on her back, elbows bent with her arms placed on her chest. Abby's left hand and arm were the left side of the face, right hand and arm near the right side of her face. Left leg was straight, right leg was bent at the knee. Her bent right leg was under her left leg. 3 tree branches placed on top of Abby in the shape of an asterisk. Above Abby's head, smaller sticks placed over her hair, crudely mimicking horns or antlers. Okay, that's the scene. That's the scene. Let's bring in our guest.
If that scene actually looks like that, then that is 100% a sacrifice. You know, it's definitely rooted in some religion. It's definitely rooted in human sacrifice. What I don't know is that accurate? Like, is their depiction of what happened accurate? Is law enforcement from the very beginning of this going and trying to search out somebody they thought was involved in this? That's what I don't know. That's what none of us know. But if what they describe to be what you see on the screen, essentially, if that's accurate, then 100% there's something larger than just a single bad actor going on. It's a religious thing, and it's sick. It's nasty. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you for that amazing double whammy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's what I think too, these poor innocent children. That's him on that bridge. We have no idea what the rest of the video holds. True. That's exactly right too, Tom. I don't know if for sure it's him on the bridge, but it seemed like it was him on the bridge, didn't it? It felt, look, and seemed like it was him on the bridge based on the information of where his car was parked at and what he was out doing. So it's a good point too. We don't know for sure, but yeah. I mean, who here thinks if Richard Allen did this, he did it alone? Put a 1 in the chat. If you think he's involved with other people, put a 2 in the chat. And this, if Richard Allen did it, let's just work from that. Say yes if you think he did this alone. Put a 1 in the chat. If you think he did this with other people, put a 2 in the chat. I think he would have done this with other people if he is guilty because of what's going on, of the evidence that exists.
Still with us, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King. In Orange County, California tonight, investigative producer and author of Forest for the Trees, Chris Todd, is back with us. And finally, in Jacksonville, Florida, retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffendorfer is with us. Okay, great to see everyone. So we've got these prison guards allegedly wearing these patches. Now the allegation is that this scene is ritualistic in nature. Chris Todd, what are your thoughts about the scene itself? There's a lot of strange things going on here.
Well, and also just to get my tidbit out tonight is now the discovery file is being leaked. So now supposedly the real photographs of the bodies are being leaked to podcasters. So that's the latest thing that I'm getting flooded with over the last 48 hours. So
Wow.
yeah, so I'm not going to comment too much about it, but from what I'm sensing is when people talk about the sticks and the shapes, I'm basically getting, some people are like, oh, it's a ritual. And I'm getting some people being like, oh, it looks like they're crudely buried in a very dark manner. So there's something there for sure.
So it seems, Jennifer Coffindaffer, what we may have here is one of those like ink blot tests, right? You put it out there, some people see something, some people don't see something. Depends what you're looking for or not looking for.
That's right. Sorry, Vinny. Yes, that's right. I think that those sticks really probably serve to try to mask the bodies and cover them up. But the way they were laid, it made these antler shapes, it made these formations that the defense is saying, look, this is an Odinistic style burial, if you will. And that's what they're running with. Like you said, their ink blot says Odinist. Mine says covering the bodies.
Mike King, you studied religious cults, the way they act, the way they do things. Let me throw out a couple scenarios here. Have you ever heard of like a ritualistic killing done by one person, or is it done by a group when they're doing it as a ritual, as some sort of a sacrifice?
Oh, no, absolutely. There are individuals who have committed ritualistic crimes. Sometimes that can go as far as even a predator who takes someone and they know that that victim, for instance, is religious in nature, and they will use that against them. They will tell them, I'm going to kill your puppy if that's what's important to him. If you tell anybody, somebody else may say, God's going to condemn you forever. But individuals absolutely have taken lives and done ritualistic kinds of things. There are a few examples of groups that have done those kinds of things. And so I think it's something you said was really important in the beginning, Vinny, and that is, are we seeing what we believe is there, or are we believing what we're seeing? And we have to be really careful when we look at the staging that goes on in some of these kinds of cases. We have to think about the predatory mindset as an individual goes from an organized offender into this disorganized state that many offenders do when the crime scene starts to get out of control. And then we start seeing experimentation and all kinds of goofy things happening in these kinds of cases. So we can't read too much into this until we start looking at it in totality. And like our other guests have said, we don't know what this really means. We haven't seen the photographs. I hope we don't see the photographs, and I hope that
I think we all are. Once it goes on the internet, everyone's going to be able to see it. That just scares
the wits out of me, Vinny. People shouldn't have to look at that. And frankly, we don't know. It could be somebody trying to cover them up and the sticks fell in the right places, or it could be very ritualistic in nature.
I agree totally with what he's saying. It's essentially what I just said. We don't know, but it depends on how meticulous and perfect they were. And I'm not going to show the footage, and I don't think it should have been leaked, but it was leaked, and I did look at it because it was on a website called, I'm not going to say even the name of the website. It was a news organization that I clicked on. They had apparently they said the F written on a tree with blood. That's what they did. They showed the picture of that. I'm sorry, it wasn't that convincing. It really was not that convincing. I was like, they were making a stretch on that one. That's the way I felt. So they might be making a stretch with these sticks as well. We don't know. Amy Heights, Cat Joy, thank you, thank you, thank you. Jennifer Swain on that train. Caboose Mode, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cat Joy, thank you for gifting those memberships. So very interesting.
So, Chris, I mean, you investigated this story, and now we're hearing about Odinism, heathenry, this Norse paganism. Did you come across that? Was it something that hey, there's like this thing that's going on out there? Because the picture the defense is trying to paint, so you got prison guards doing it. You've got this ritualistic scene, and then we've got specific people who are who are practicing all of this. Did you come across any of that before the defense kind of laid all this stuff out?
Very early on, a lot of the hardcore Delphi people were talking about that, but this is a whole new ballgame. This is another world where they're bringing in the prison guards and the patches and Odinism. And so it was talked about this rune on the tree, and now that picture's online of the blood. And so it was, but now it's like mainstream. And I really feel, I smell some desperation by Richard Allen and his defense team. And if I was Richard, I wouldn't be happy with what they're doing. And I wouldn't be happy with what Richard's doing either. I think it's kind of a mess right now with what's going on with them, you know, trying to blame other people, you know, when there were some serious suspects very early on. Now we're going into a patsy. The guards are coercing him. It's kind of like spinning out of control. That's what I feel. I know people, you know.
No, this is what we're trying to understand tonight, is exactly what I mean. So, you know, Jennifer, sometimes in a trial, there's always two sides. And right now we've got, you know, the allegations, we've got this defense response. And I say, well, what would be in the middle of all this? Like, is it possible that, do we know anything about Richard Allen's background? Is it possible that he's an Odinist? Like, is that in play here? And that this becomes a good cover because, all right, there might be other Odinists out there, and like the scene has some ritualistic aspect to it? Or what does this scene strike you as? Does it strike you as a crime of opportunity, something that was pre-planned? Or is it a case of some sexual deviancy? What do you venture is happening at this scene?
Well, it's always never made sense that Richard Allen just happened upon these two ladies, these young ladies, and he was prepared. He had a knife, he had a gun, and, you know, was he hunting for victims, or did he just happen upon them? None of this really makes much sense, but I will say, with those patches being identified and those individuals saying, yes, you know, they're Odinistic type patches, that puts some meat on the bone to me for the defense, from the standpoint of a lot of people thought there's no way prison guards have these sorts of patches. Well, guess what? They did. And what's also interesting is just because you don't have a patch doesn't mean you're not an Odinist. And how did Richard Allen even know what those patches meant? He knew. Why did he know?
That's a great point as well. All right. Stay where you are, everyone, because when we come back, we're going to talk about those specific suspects. We're not going to name them, just going to give them numbers. But the defense has named them in this memorandum, and we're going to talk about the evidence that they say implicates going through what the defense is saying here. And I said two approaches to this. Is this something that could muddy the waters at trial, or is this the actual truth? Richard Allen is innocent, and somebody else did it. Let's get to who they are pointing their fingers at. As always, we are not naming the names. We're giving these suspects that the defense is pointing at numbers. So let's take a look. This is from the defense. This is from the actual Odin report that was done by investigators in the case. Person one's son was dating Abby Williams at the time of the murders. On February 17th, 2017, the FBI interviewed person one at the Delphi Police Department, and person one said the following. His son was 16 years old and was a friend of Abby. Person one stated that he visited Delphi every weekend to hang out with his friend, person two. When person one would go to person two's house in Delphi, he would bring his son. Person one believes that is when his son would contact Abby. Person one said he and his friend, person two, started a, quote, tribe of Asatru followers. They had meetings at person two's house on Sundays and have 5 or 6 regular members. Asatru is interchangeable with Odinism. Person one's ex-wife told investigators when person one was intoxicated, he told her person one and person two got into a fight while near a river in the woods conducting a ritual. One of them did something the other no longer agrees with, and they no longer talk. She said the river was near person two's house. The friendship between person one and person two appeared to end around February 13th, 2017. That's the day of the abduction and murder. The girls were abducted February 13th. Person two's home was 3.1 miles or a 7-minute drive to the entry point to the area where the girls were murdered. And that's from part one of the Odin report.
The Odin report, pretty specific. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's convincing in one way, and another way it's preposterous. Hey, Cat Joy, thank you. Naomi. Woo, Naomi. Thank you. And thank you, Cat Joy, for trying to make sure every single person that is watching has a membership. You're amazing.
Report. Let's bring back in our guests, Mike King, Chris Todd, Jennifer Koffendorfer. Chris, your thoughts about person one and person two here. Again, more of these pagan, Odinist heathens in Indiana.
Well, I have a photo of the son with, supposedly he was dating Abby, actually. And I know who they're talking about, his father, which we're not saying anybody's names. And like Nick McClellan said, the prosecutor says this is colorful, but lacking any basis of truth, right? And very unprofessional. So he's already stated that too. So again, we're starting to pull in this conspiratorial angle. And also they mentioned one of these gentlemen supposedly has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old. Okay, that's in the Franks motion. So this is the circus that we're creating with these guys. And I don't know if we're making them famous or we're making them infamous. I don't know what's going on, boots on the ground there, but it's a little out of control in my eye.
Jennifer Koppendorfer, your thoughts about person one, person two, also allegedly practicing this rare, unusual, pre-Christian Nordic religion?
Well, again, Vinny, now we're seeing, again, a little bit more meat on the bone, that this just isn't some fantasy or something that isn't really practiced anymore, that they actually had meetings, that they came together. And then certainly this fight that occurred at this time frame, could give someone pause. I think the defense is just merely trying to establish some sense of reasonable doubt in this case. And it's building. The building blocks are coming along for them.
All right, fasten your seatbelt, Mike King. Here we go. This is from the Odin Report Part 2. On April 7th, 2017, person one posted a photo of his hand marked with a rune resembling the formation of sticks found on Abby's body. Trooper Purdy learned person one was an Odinist and looked at his Facebook page where he saw a photograph of two girls apparently lying on the ground of the forest, posed as if they were dead with tree limbs arranged over their bodies. Person one created a creepy painting of a man believed to be Odin hanging upside down from a tree with his legs posed similar to Abby's at the crime scene. This painting also contains two hidden Easter eggs, including a red F rune at the base of the tree, just like the F rune painted on the tree at the crime scene. A video from February 2016 seems to show an Odinite ceremony. The ceremony is being filmed by person one, and towards the end, someone who appears to be person two uses his hand to make a marking on a tree. Person one's Facebook page links him to person three in Rushville, Indiana, different part of the state. A witness told law enforcement that on February 14th, 2017, person three told her he was in a gang, had been on the bridge with two girls that were killed, and that someone named Abigail was a pain and a troublemaker. In 2018, law enforcement gave this witness a polygraph test to determine if she was being truthful about person three's alleged statements, and she passed. Person three was asked to take a mouth swab for DNA testing. He then asked the trooper what would happen if his spit was found on one of the girls at the crime scene. Mike King?
Yeah, I mean, that's great for the defense to be able to create doubt and question in the mind of a jury, and all of this is certainly for that purpose. The thing that is going to be interesting in my opinion, Vinny, is whether there are other corroborating things that that back these up, because there are numerous cases where people have shared insider information that is leaked out, and they purported that they had some kind of inside information. We see it in some serial killer cases. I remember Robert Ben Rhodes, how offended he was that somebody was getting credit for his murders. Same thing happened with BTK when somebody got wind of some of the things recovered in the investigation and then used it to confess. And we think, how would anybody ever confess to something like this? And frankly, it's just some people have such mundane lives that this is a way for them to have a form of legacy. But how do you discount the kind?
It's like this case of John Benet Ramsey. How many people confessed to the murders of John Benet Ramsey? It's an extensive list of people. I mean, kind of crazy.
Kinds of information that's coming forward. And I just hope that the prosecution has solid information that helps them say, we've excluded that because of these things.
All right, everyone stay where you are. We're doing a little change here. We're going to go into some overtime here. So Chris, Jennifer, please stay where you are. We're going to continue our discussion because I want to know about these Facebook links and any sort of connection to Odinism here. This stuff is scaring me. This is scaring me, especially if I'm a prosecutor in the case. But I'm not feeling like we're proving someone else did it. But stay where you are. Coming up next hour. On the docket tonight in Dedham, Massachusetts, Karen Reed has been accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her car. She claims it's a police conspiracy, and a local video blogger.
On the premiere episode of an all-new Court TV true crime series.
This case was unlike a normal murder case.
It's official that they're dead. No father could do that to his son. No Murdoch could do it to a Murdoch. He has a had to keep learning.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. Premieres Sunday night, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. We're talking about the Delphi murders. Our guests are still with us, and I want to break this down. And Chris, I'll begin with you. Looking at person one, Facebook posts predating the release of any of this information. Person three, alleged confession. Person three is the one described as having the reduced mental capacity. Person two is the one who's living near the murder scene 3 miles away, but is having these rituals. Is there a grain of truth to these allegations that you came across? Let's begin with those Facebook posts.
And this will fit. I'm working a case in the Midwest of a young man that was murdered. And it's very similar to this, where some of these people will start to brag and toy with you right after the murders, a year later, in different time frames. And they know they didn't do anything, so they can say crazy stuff. Like they're saying, oh, what if somebody spit on them? Is there DNA? And you're like, whoa, 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 why are you saying that? So I've seen this before and I'm dealing with it now. And I will say, when you deal with these people and there's like multiple going back and forth, sometimes you believe them and they get you on these wild goose chases. So I think this is a case of that, where they're saying certain things because they know they didn't do anything, but they want to jump in. These people are from another town. It's a different county, Rush County. And these police getting involved in this, they don't have jurisdiction. So there's a lot of layers here, but that's the basics of where I'm at now.
Yeah. And on that note, Jennifer, if we take a step back, right, because this is now a widening conspiracy, and there would have to be, I would think, some connection between person one, person two, person three, and those correction officers, right? Like they've got to connect them if they want to really bring this together to convince me that the truth is this man is innocent.
Right, Vinny. But the bigger thing that just really gnaws at me is what was done with this crime scene. In other words, is there anything from the crime scene that would connect these individuals? As an example, this rune F on the tree. Did law enforcement do the right thing and cut out that rune and the bark and look for DNA. There would have been much, a lot of DNA on there, touch DNA from rubbing and making this rune. The sticks, we know these girls were found by citizenry that were searching. Did they rush to the girls and move the sticks in any way? What about EMS when they came up? Was anything touched? Was anything bothered? When were those pictures exactly taken? And is there DNA that could possibly connect person 1, 2, or 3 to this scene? And at the end of the day, did they have alibis? I just believe the prosecution is going to be able to hopefully make some distinctions here, whether they can even be connected, Benny.
I would love to talk to Jennifer Coffindaffer about this. I would. I'd love to have a deep conversation with her about this case. And I've messaged her when she was on the panel with that one guy who was saying some things that were questionable. And she's like, I don't know if we can trust him. And I agree with that because I felt the same way. Amy Heights, thank you so much for that amazing super sticker. And Kat Joy for gifting those memberships. Folks, that's all we have time for today. Let me take a few minutes and just pray for you real fast, if you don't mind, before we get off the screen. And let's not forget to pray for Israel, for peace in Jerusalem. So, Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for every person that's gathered on the stream today. I don't think it's happenstance or accident that they're here, but God, instead, I believe that you sent them here. And I pray right now that your favor surrounds them like a shield, that they have a divine encounter with your goodness and mercy, and that your goodness and mercy touches their hearts, God, that you lavish your love upon them in a way that they can feel it and sense it and know it. And so I bless them now in Jesus' name. Lord, you are amazing. Thank you, Jesus. And Lord, we pray right now for the supernatural peace of Israel, that this conflict has arisen. Lord, I pray that this conflict goes as quick as it's come, that you give Israel supernatural strength like you did many, many times in the Bible, and that this is a group of people, God, that you've chosen to love. And God, I pray right now in the name of Jesus, their Iron Dome has supernatural strength, and their battle leaders have wisdom that can only come from the Holy Spirit. And so we bless them with that in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you guys for being on the stream today. And I think you're amazing. And we will be back very, very, very soon.